Hey, what's up, guys? It's your boy Kingdom. Uh, so I want you guys to look at the bottom card on this deck, and this is just a couple of cards you can see right here. Sorry if the lighting goes in and out, but it's because of the cards going up in front of the camera. Okay, so let's look at the bottom card. It's the Ten of Hearts. I can see that it's the Ten of Hearts. It's okay that I can see it. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take that bottom card and I'm gonna put it on top of the deck. I'm gonna put it on top, okay? And then here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna thumb through to the middle. I'm gonna pull the deck out and show you the bottom. Now, some of you probably know how that trick is done. Some of you can go back and watch it, and you'll figure it out. Um, the point that I'm trying to make is that it's called sleight of hand, and there is a there it is how all magic is done, and I there's plenty of card tricks I can do, that I could show you guys, where you just use sleight of hand and you fool somebody into thinking you do something and you do another thing. And all I did right there was sleight of hand. And so the the Chicago Huntsmen have been pulling a magic trick on all the teams in the league using Envoy. And there's this article by Katie Bedford that is freaking phenomenal. Well written, just I mean it makes me more excited to see these two teams face off tomorrow. And she in the article she interviewed the players on Faze and asks them, are they looking forward to taking on Chicago, and how can they beat Chicago? And basically the synopsis from all of them is we've got to play our game, we've got to stick to our strategy and our system, and we have to neutralize Envoy. Unbeknownst to the COD community, what's happened in most of the pro community that plays against the Chicago Huntsmen is most of the good teams that can't beat them, the most annoying factor, and Crim6 has said this publicly, is Envoy. His ability, and Abizi said it, Priesta said it, Crowder even said it. They said that what he does is he rotates early and he plays very sneaky. And by rotating early, by being sneaky and getting into position before the other team even knows it. And what he probably does is skips gunfights. It because of the way when we watch, we don't get to know. You know, I've been actually watching his POV a lot in scrims, and you can see him do this. But he basically gets to where he wants to go before committing to a gunfight. It's so intelligent. And what it's doing for the Huntsman is it's allowing then his teammates to spawn on him, and all he has to do is maybe win one 1v1, and he's a great player. He is definitely worthy of winning that 1v1, and he's got you. And it's interesting to hear from all of Faze. Every single player was saying that Envoy is the one person on that team that they have to neutralize. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, but Scump dropped a 2.13 in S&D, and many people thought that was their weakest game type. Arcides has been touted as one of the best players in this game, and one of the best flexes in the game. He can play with a sub, he can play with an AR, he can play whatever you need him to play, and he has an accurate shot, and he's ridiculous. Gunless has been touted as one of the best players in Call of Duty for the last 2 or 3 years. And then you have Formal, who can sit on the hill and get 2 and 3 pieces when necessary. Like if you watch the Dallas series, the way they won the hard point was an early rotation by Envoy, and then Formal and Arcides just held it down. I believe the way that they won the domination against who was it? Paris, or was it the no? It was the Gorillas that almost beat them in domination, and it was Envoy rotating. There is something to this, and I think that he's going to be the guy to watch for this event. The Huntsmen are in the driver's seat, and the question I have for you guys is because it seems like the community at first was like, yeah, Faze is gonna just nobody's stopping Faze. Faze is gonna take down the Huntsman. Faze is unstoppable. Faze hasn't lost a round of search and destroy. But Faze also got beat by the subliners and took one of the worst domination weapons that we've seen in this CDL so far, losing by over 70 points. And so if Chicago can just play their game, then this is going to be a closer matchup than a lot of people thought. And we might see Chicago come out and dominate. And here's the thing. If Chicago wins in Atlanta, if they win this weekend, they're going to champs. I'm saying it now. If they win this weekend, they will walk away and have 110 points. And let's say Faze gets second. Faze will only have 50. They'll have 110 points. Faze will have 50. And if they get second place at the next 3 events, they'll then have 200 points. And if Faze gets first place at their next 3 events, Faze would have the same 200 points. So Faze would have to get first place at every event they go to, including the Chicago Homestead, while Chicago would have to get second at every event. And if they win this weekend, I can guarantee you they're going to win at some of those other homesteads. I can just see it happening. They probably will win in Dallas. They probably will win in Chicago. I mean, we may be looking at already in the CDL a dynasty. And it's amazing because a lot of people say that Faze won the offseason. And it looks like Chicago may have won the offseason by getting Envoy and adding him to the talented roster that they have. And then pulling this guy in. And, you know, my co-host on my podcast, Icon, he said in the very first podcast we were talking about, you know, superstars and future and things like this, and Simp can be the future kind of scump and all this kind of stuff. And Icon said he thinks it's Envoy because Envoy has the personality, and even Envoy himself, you know, in The Hunt, episode 2 or 3, I don't remember which one, but it came out yesterday. He said himself, in scrims, his job is to stay 2 to 3 steps ahead. So always be in front of the other team on rotation. And that's his job. And if he can do that on land, they can't be stopped. And they proved that in London. And I would say the reason I have them as number 1 in my power rankings, number 1, is not because Faze just haven't shown us anything. I honestly believe that Chicago has shown us a lot. And they have shown and proved that they have every right to be as confident as they are. And that they actually can beat Faze. You know, Hector said he would not be surprised if Faze won. He wouldn't be surprised if Chicago won. He's not going into Faze, you know, going into Atlanta. They're not going into Atlanta like shook. Other teams are. But Chicago is not going into Atlanta thinking we don't have a chance at winning this. This team could prove this weekend they're the best team in the game, and it's going to be a long season for everybody else. If they, in Faze's first opportunity at their homestead, if they take down Faze, they're going to champs. Nobody else is going to catch them in points. They only have 7 events left after this weekend. 7 events for that team after this weekend. You have to remember, every team only plays 9 events. So Faze doesn't get this. They already miss out on a chip, and you know, with the extra 20 points that Chicago got in Minnesota, they're just sitting pretty at 200 points. Nobody will be even close to them. The only team that can make a difference and even get in first, because even if Faze wins, they're not going to be in first place over Chicago. The only team that can push over Chicago is if Paris wins in Atlanta. They put themselves in the best position possible. And to all the pro players and the coaches and the analysts and the casters that say the standings don't matter, the standings absolutely matter. There is a reason why, even though preseason everybody was like, hey, you know, nobody's going to use their subs. Nobody's going to use their... We've already seen subs being used. It looks like the Gorillas are going to use a sub. Toronto's going to use another sub. We know that Enable is being benched and Seattle's going to use a sub in LA. Like, teams are using their subs because though you can't have a slow start in this league unless you want to be fighting for that middle of the pack, which a lot of teams are going to be doing. They're going to be fighting for the wild card spot. And while Chicago is going to be sitting pretty at the top. And even if they get second, they're going to have 100 points. And let's say Faze gets first, Faze is going to have 70. So Faze can't pass them until they'd have to win this event and then win the next event that Chicago's not at. That's the only way that Faze is going to be able to move into first place, and it'll be back and forth the whole year. Of course, Faze has an opportunity this weekend to win, but listening to the Faze guys give like actual respect to Envoy, and they're saying our teamwork and here's the one thing I'll say. They said that they have chemistry, and that's what matters. And I agree that they have chemistry because it's almost like when I used to I like to watch basketball interviews post game, and I like to see what the players say. And I always notice any team LeBron's on, the superstars always say the same thing. They say the exact same thing. Well, we're just taking it one game at a time. We just got to focus on our defense, and we got to focus on our rotations, and we got to, like, literally. And when a team is saying the same thing, that means they're on the same page. And Faze all said the same thing. Like, we're going to bank still on our search and destroy, even though Chicago proved that their search and destroy is great. The only thing that Faze was not on the same page about, because they were on the same page about Envoy, all of them, even the coach Crowder. The only thing they weren't on the same page about is Crowder and a couple of the guys are like, we don't really care about facing, like Priesthood, we don't really care about facing off against Chicago. We're going to face off against them later in the season anyway. But Abizi is like, if we don't get to play Chicago this weekend, it's going to suck. I want to play against my former teammate Arcides. Like, Abizi wants to play against Arcides. They want to play Chicago because some of them want to prove we're the top dogs. And this is going to be this weekend is going to be bananas. And I am so excited for even this format. Now, looking at the fact that the LA Homestead is in 14 days, it's in 2 weeks. Like, literally after this weekend, we only have to wait 2 weeks. And then we have another event. I mean, it's amazing. Like, my podcast, each week, I'm just doing prediction and then recap. And then when they have the mid-season sprint where they got Florida, Chicago, and Seattle back to back, I'm going to have to do recaps and predictions all in one show. I mean, it's bananas, boys. It's bananas. And to tell you guys about me real quick before I end the video, I had a really good interview yesterday with a company inside of gaming, and I'll announce soon. I also have an interview coming up with, I'm just going to say I have an interview coming up that you guys will see that I'm really excited about, that'll help the podcast grow, that I didn't really ask for. It was something that kind of was asked about, and I'm just in a great position right now, and things are going really well, and I'll keep you guys informed as what's going on in my life. I guess to mention the other teams that are there, Minnesota and Florida have to be the London and Paris of London. Minnesota and Florida need to somehow get themselves out of the groups and be in the semifinals. They have to prove that they belong in contention, that they belong fighting for that fourth spot and fighting for the top of the wild card pack. They have to do that this weekend, and Paris has an opportunity to pull even farther away from everybody else. And so we'll see, because Paris, until the end of the season, is going to be thanking themselves that they won both matches in Minnesota. And they're going to be sitting pretty in top four. And Paris may sneakily be one of the teams that gets that automatic bid, the top four teams that gets the automatic bid to champs. If they just keep getting to the semifinals, they'll be fine. And they can get 10 points at a couple of tournaments. But if they can keep getting to the semifinals and picking up 20 points, they'll keep themselves well far ahead of most of the other teams. OGLA and Toronto, you got to win at least one. Especially OGLA, only team without any points on the board. You got to win at least one match. Unfortunately, you start out against Faze, but if you're going to win, that's the match to win, in my opinion. Shut everybody up, change all the power rankings, confuse us all. We won't know. Like, people are starting to talk about that they've been better in scrims, they've been better online, they've been doing their jobs, they're learning how to play together better. And, Slasher's on the team. They're not going to just sit around and do nothing and twiddle their thumbs. And so going into the LA Homestead, it would be wonderful if they had at least 20 points. If they could somehow get into the grand final and walk away with 30 points, well, then we're changing the whole ball game. So I'm excited about Call of Duty this weekend. There's so many scenarios, so many things that can happen. You guys tell me in the comments, is it Chicago or is it Faze? Personally, I do have Faze winning, but I've said it every single time I've been on camera. If any team is going to beat this Faze team, it's going to be Chicago. And they definitely are in position to do it. They have Envoy, but he's just a little piece of a team that has proved in London. And if they show this weekend that S&D game is consistent, it's over. It's over. That Dynasty Part 3, it's over. It is over for the competition if they prove this weekend that then teams are going to be chasing them rather than thinking about chasing Faze. We're going to see this weekend, because both of these teams are undefeated and somebody's taking an L this weekend. Nevertheless, this is your boy Kingdom. I'll see you guys in the next video.